Topics related to developments in Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh. Joining me are two eminent guests in the studio. Let me introduce you to the guest. Sushil Pandit, expert on Kashmir issues. Welcome, sir, to our studio. And also Shishir Sinha, senior journalist, joining us in the studio. Mr. Pandit, I'll come to you first. Now that the hurdle of Article 370 is behind us, with all these developments taking place, pleasant updates of peace and calm coming in from Kashmir as well. How do you see is the road ahead for Jammu, Kashmir and Ladakh from here?
I think there is a comprehensive change in the political and administrative setup of what used to be the state of Jammu and Kashmir.
Yes.
We have two union territories now. Going forward, the first few weeks will be about challenges on ground. We know this state has been in the grip of disturbances. There have been sporadic cases of violence, breach of peace. Government is fully equipped, is there on ground, in control of situation. We are heading towards Eid on Monday. I think gradually the restrictions will be lifted and normalcy restored. And if there is any attempt for mischief, it will be dealt with resolutely, and a message sent that there needs to be order on ground, and anyone in violation of that order will have to face consequences, because these are crucial days now. If the writ of the state is laid down and is adhered to, time ahead will be relatively calm. Thereafter, the entire process of restructuring the political landscape will come through. State government employees have overnight become central government employees.
Right.
Also the procedures, the norms, the delimitation, the appointment of relevant people, all that will follow. And then business as usual, because a new assembly will have to take place in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. For that, constituencies demarcated, a certain calendar of electoral process to bring this union territory with an assembly and a chief minister like Delhi, like Puducherry. I'm sure in going ahead in the weeks and months to follow, as we progress in restructuring the political and administrative systems there, things will normalize. Regular traffic of tourists, of students, of pilgrims will be restored.
And one would be waiting to have that day as soon as it does.
But what is anticipated there is the logjam one faced in development, in investment, in creating new opportunities. That logjam has been removed. Now we would see it translating on ground in terms of fresh energy and activity unleashed there, in terms of creating opportunities and giving a boost to the economy, infrastructure in the state. I see a great deal of hope and positive anticipation in the state.
Hope would be crucial for people to go forward from this historic step. Shishir, I'll come to you. We saw earlier how Pakistan is trying to use this development in Jammu and Kashmir in order to meet its own really interest and really indulge in diplomatic and trade adventurism. Can it really? We tried to explain through data earlier in the show how Pakistan has much more to lose by attacking the trade ties with India. How do you see this development? Can Pakistan really afford to do this?
I think it's irrelevant to talk about the trade ties between India and Pakistan.
Yeah, they're minimal,
Yeah, you give annual figure. I will just give you the first quarter number. And this says that we exported something around 137.26 billion. What was the export to Pakistan? Just 452.5 million. If you talk about import, it was 164.5 billion. And Pakistan is just 7.13. So what does it mean? I mean, it's irrelevant to talk about the trade thing. Now coming to the Pakistan economic situation, you know, Pakistan growth rate is just 3.6% or 3.9%.
It's been constantly on the decline.
Yes, and the recent data says, because their financial year ends in June. So recent data says that their growth rate has come down from 6.2% to 3.9%. Now the worst thing is that they are getting cheaper raw material from India. They were getting cheaper raw material from India. If you talk about the export from India, that organic chemical, cotton, plastic, dye and all those things, these are the raw material for their manufacturing sector. Now the problem is that they will have to buy this from the other market at a very high price. So their manufacturing will be impacted. At the same time, you just see their inflation rate, it is more than 7%, and it is expected to go up further. So if the prices of manufacturing product in Pakistan is getting costlier, then the inflation will also, inflation rate will also go up.
And Shishir, the story that made a lot of headline, if I may just interrupt you, about taxes on roti, naan and these basic commodities, food commodities. Do you see Pakistan really misplacing its priorities completely? I mean, US also saying that you need to check terrorists on your own soil before you intervene in somebody's internal affairs. So the priorities seem to be completely misplaced for the neighborhood.
Yeah, and also they are on the FATF grey list.
Yes.
I mean, that is one threat which they have to think, because any further action by FATF will affect multilateral funding to the Pakistan. So Pakistan will not be able to get fund from various agencies. So on the one hand, their trade is getting affected. At the same time, their manufacturing activities getting affected. They are not getting fund from the multilateral activities. So I think Pakistan economy is in real shambles, and it's very difficult to imagine that what kind of situation Pakistani people are going to face in next 2 to 3 years. So trade relation, if you are causing some kind of disturbance with India on a trade front, that is going to hurt you more. We are not going to affect it. What we were getting, fresh fruits, dry nuts, there are various other markets who are supplying to that. What we were exporting to them, like the organic chemicals or the cotton, there are market in Middle East and in some other part of Africa which are seeking these things from us. So for us, there is no problem on the market front. For them, the problem is that they are not going to get cheaper product. They are not going to get some products which are easily available. And please don't forget the logistic cost involved in transportation of the good. Taking from India is easy. Bringing from Africa or from China is not that easy.
Right. Sushil ji, I'll come to you. Earlier we saw some visuals of NSIG Doval in Shopia interacting with the locals there, interacting also with the security forces in the region. Going forward, how significant do you think these confidence building measures will be, particularly in Kashmir, and what are the expectations ahead? There's a big news coming in. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is going to address the nation, and we are talking about the issue of Jammu and Kashmir, the removal of Article 370, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi is going to address the nation at 8 p.m. today. That's the news that's just coming in. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is going to address the nation at 8 p.m. and all of us will be, of course, waiting to hear what the Prime Minister has said. And there's a Twitter that came in from the PMO Twitter. Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi will be addressing the nation today at 8 p.m. So stay tuned to DD News for that as well. We'll be getting you all the updates and analysis of that. Prime Minister Narendra Modi address at 8 p.m. today. My colleague Sudhakar is joining us on phone line. Sudhakar, Prime Minister set to speak directly to the nation 8 p.m. today. What are the key expectations?
जी बिल्कुल, देखिए अभी प्रधानमंत्री कार्यालय के ट्विटर हैंडल से पीएमओ इंडिया का जो ट्विटर हैंडल है उसके जरिए ये खबर आई है। प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी रात 8 बजे देश को संबोधित करेंगे और बहुत बड़ी खबर है। हमको पता है शुभेंदु खासतौर से संसद का एक बेहद ही उत्पादक सत्र वो खत्म हुआ है और उसके ठीक बाद ये प्रधानमंत्री राष्ट्र को संबोधित करेंगे और एक ऐसे वक्त में हो रहा है।
All right, my colleague Sudhakar was giving us update on Prime Minister's address that is scheduled for 8 p.m. Today. And as he mentioned, there are lots of key issues. The Parliament also has had a very productive session, and also the removal of Article 370. A lot of expectation of the nation from Prime Minister to know what is on his mind and the things that he would like to address to the nation. Sushilji, let's first talk about this. What are your key expectations when Prime Minister directly addresses the nation this evening?
See, I think it's in good measure. We see National Security Advisor leading from the front in Kashmir, camping there for the past few days, and now Prime Minister taking to the airwaves and talking to the nation. It shows the significance of the decisions taken in the last 72 hours. It shows how serious, how committed and how resolute this government is in terms of seeing these decisions through on ground without a hitch. Everyone is on board and completely committed to stand by, implement and benefit these decisions, offer the benefits of these decisions to the last man in the line. It was a huge decision for this country. It took 70 years coming. A temporary article ordinarily should have gone a long time back.
Right.
It was sustained here in the hope that people who think that the state needs special status, autonomy, privileges would value them and build on them for their own prosperity, for their own well-being. But the results were just the opposite. And therefore, a very tough but resolute political decision to alter the scheme of things in order to find a way out of troubles in Kashmir seems to be a great one. And Prime Minister speaking to the country is a measure of how seriously they want to communicate to population at large within the country and the world, and bring clarity to this issue.
For a moment, sir, let's again connect to my colleague Sudhakar, who's tracking more details on Prime Minister's address that is scheduled at 8 p.m. This evening. Sudhakar, you were telling us about the key expectation. Of course, historic Parliament session. Landmark bills got cleared. So tell us more. We got disconnected when you were telling us last. Yes, Sudhakar. So Prime Minister Narendra Modi is going to be addressing the nation at 8 p.m. today. You can, of course, stay tuned to DD News for all the updates on that. Shishirji, I'll come to you. How do you look forward to Prime Minister's address? And as our colleague just mentioned, that the Parliament session also was historic in many ways. Article 370, triple talaq, lot of milestones achieved in a single session.
See, there are a lot of questions after this particular passage of this legislation, and I hope that the Prime Minister would like to reply to all those questions. This is the first thing. The second is, I think it is a confidence building measures, because there was also talk about that he didn't talk to various people and he didn't talk to the stakeholder before taking the decision. So he will also try to give some kind of argument, some kind of logic on this issue. And the most important thing is that Jammu and Kashmir is now getting all kind of assistance in terms of policy, in terms of economic issues, in terms of any other policy measures which other states were getting, but Jammu and Kashmir had some kind of issues related with the policy implementation. And that, if I can remember correctly, that before the introduction of GST, it was the Jammu and Kashmir Legislative Assembly has to pass a special resolution to adopt that particular constitutional amendment in the state. So these things were affecting economic activities in Jammu and Kashmir. Now we can hope that Jammu and Kashmir will be on the same path and it will have a much better economic environment, just like any other state in the country.
Right. And Sunilji, we were talking about the confidence building measures. Of course, Prime Minister's address is scheduled for later today. And Ajit Doval, NSA, was in Shopia. You're telling us about the ways in which that connect of the administration with the people. And let's talk about Kashmir first. And the people-to-people connect, people of the nation, people of Kashmir. How do you think that confidence building measure could be really fast-tracked and taken forward? Sushilji.
Fast tracking of these political measures is indeed necessary, because we are in a state of transition in the state.
Right.
You will soon see new delimitation of constituencies happening. You will also see application of central laws extending to the state. You will see several institutions getting started there, to start with even Minorities Commission, which has been long pending, in fact advised by the Supreme Court. So all these measures will see the state benefiting from the laws, the provisions, the mechanisms that central government had, and also extended to different states and union territories, coming to Kashmir and benefiting people. And Prime Minister himself saying it, communicating about it, carries a huge amount of credibility and weight. That assurance coming from the man who's driving these changes himself from Prime Minister's office will also mean a certain degree of guarantee, an ironclad guarantee coming from the strongest man in charge of the government.
And let's also find out, sir, how people of Jammu Kashmir, Ladakh are looking forward to Prime Minister's address. Connecting with me is Arun Sharma from Leh. We'll connect with him. My colleague Arun Sharma is reporting from Leh. Arun, Prime Minister's address scheduled for 8 p.m. today. We saw celebrations break out in Leh Ladakh in particular. Union territory was their long pending demand. How are they looking forward to Prime Minister's address?
That's right, Shubhendu. Now, big news that's coming in that the Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be addressing the nation at 8 p.m. today. And people over here in Ladakh are really excited and enthusiastic about that fact. Let me just show you the visuals first of all. Look at these visuals. Now, these Ladakhis were waiting right from the morning and they were celebrating this moment as there is no 370 now, no 35A now. So now Ladakh is a union territory. That's a big point, big takeaway, and a big sigh of relief for the people of Ladakh. I have met a couple of people who have struggled a lot. They have annually struggled a lot in order to get this status. We know this fact that Zamyang ji, the MP of Ladakh, had represented very well in the Lok Sabha when he gave a speech. He actually put the Ladakhis' aspirations, their thought on the national level. But what do people over here think? Let's try to understand from them. आपसे समझना चाहेंगे, प्रधानमंत्री 8 बजे संबोधन कर रहे हैं. आप प्रधानमंत्री को किस तरह से देखते हैं? और ये स्ट्रॉन्ग विल जिससे जो आप देखते हैं कि स्ट्रॉन्ग लीडरशिप जो होती है, क्या यही एक कारण आपको लगता है कि 370 एबॉलिश हो पाया, लद्दाख आज एक यूटी बन पाया?
मोदी जी से बहुत सारी उम्मीदें हैं. हमने अपने जीवन में पहली बार ऐसा एक प्राइम मिनिस्टर देखा जिसमें एक गुजराती नहीं या कोई दूसरे स्टेट के नहीं, जिसमें हमें भारत नज़र आता है, भारत का दर्शन होता है. तो आज 8 बजे जब वो संबोधन करेंगे भारत को, आर्टिकल 370, हम तो कभी नहीं चाहते थे कि लद्दाख जो वो कश्मीर के नीचे रहे. हमारे दादा दादियाँ सब गुजर गए यूटी के लिए आवाज़ उठा के. हमारे यहाँ एक अच्छा स्कूल तो दूर की बात, यूनिवर्सिटी तो दूर की बात, एक अच्छे स्कूल भी नहीं. पहले जब स्कूल में पढ़ने जाते थे तो उर्दू तो मैंडेटरी था, जबकि हमारा अपना भाषा है. तो कल जमयांग हमारे यूथ जो एमपी है जमयांग सिंह नामग्याल जी, उन्होंने बहुत अच्छी तरह बताया कि उस समय का सरकार ने कश्मीरी भाषा को, जिसकी लिपि भी नहीं है, उसको रिकॉग्नाइज किया था. हमारे तो अल्फ़ाबेट, ग्रामर, लिपि सब है. तो उम्मीदें ये है कि मोदी जी जो बहुत साल पहले यानी 70 साल कह सकते, जो पुराने सरकार ने गलतियाँ की, हम नहीं कहते कि उन्होंने उनसे कुछ छूट गया, उन्होंने जानबूझ के जो गलतियाँ की हमारे लद्दाख के लिए, जो भारत का अटूट अंग है, उनके लिए.
So they have completed that. The aspirations have been for. Shubhendu, let me also point out over here when Mr. Zamyang, he clearly said that आन देश की, शान देश की, देश की हम संतान हैं, 3 रंगों से रंगे तिरंगा, यही हमारे और हमारे देश की पहचान है. So that's something, that's a kind of feeling, that's a kind of patriotism that we can see over in Ladakh as well, as Ladakh is now unitary. Now what we're learning from our sources primarily that Prime Minister Narendra Modi's speech can primarily give a clear vision as to what can be the focus or primarily after the abolishing of 370, what will be the way forward, what will be the vision for the people of Ladakh, Jammu and Kashmir. And of course, he will also try to aware people that what are the major benefits of this major major point. So that all eyes of Ladakis as of now are primarily on, this 8 p.m. when Prime Minister
Right,
Narendra
Arun.
Modi will be addressing to the nation.
Right, Arun, there. Thanks very much for getting us those voices, those visuals, those glimpses of celebration in Ladakh. Thanks very much for joining us from there. And let's again connect to our guests in the studio. Shishir, I'll come to you. You were telling us about the nature of economic integration that the region was really waiting for it to happen. And Home Minister Amit Shah also, when he was discussing the Article 370 related bill resolution in the parliament, he spoke about how development is in fact one of the key motivation to get rid of this hurdle. If you could simplify for us in near term, in mid term, in long term, what are the benefits of economic integration that will reach the people of Kashmir, the people of Jammu, the people of Ladakh and rest of the nation?
See, most important thing is the employment. I mean, employment, why the employment activities are not very much there? Because of some limitations for the other people who are going to set up the industries there.
Yes.
So now after scrapping of 370 and 35A, we hope that there will be no problem for any industry to set up their plant or set up their manufacturing activities there. And that will create a good number of employment opportunities for Jammu and Kashmir youths. So that is one advantage. The second thing is the devolution. I mean, in terms of Finance Commission devolution, Jammu and Kashmir will now be at par with the other states and union territories in terms of devolution. Earlier there used to be a special package kind of thing for Jammu and Kashmir under 370. So now it will be based on the Finance Commission, and all the other 7 union territories which are getting central assistance or central grant, Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh will also get the same kind of assistance and same kind of grant. There will also be a performance linked incentive for the union territories like Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh that will also benefit. And at the a very important thing is that there will be a special package to set up their economic activities there. I think there was a package of 1.25 lakh crore especially for Jammu and Kashmir, but there were some problems in implementation of that package, and a limited part of that package was implemented. After this particular move, I think that package will be implemented completely, and that will boost the economic activity in that particular region.
All right, we're almost over the time for the discussion, but Mr. Pandit, I'll just come to you with one final comment very briefly. Expectations were that our own exiled brethren, the Kashmiri Pandits, it is a historical moment for them too. What can they look forward to? Very briefly, sir, your thoughts on that, and then we'll conclude the discussion.
Oh, this community is overwhelmed and really hopeful that we will go back to our homes, go back to our pilgrimages, our temples, our ancestral lands, and go back to that life which we've been missing for the last 30 years. But we know right now we need to make the place secure, stabilize, create an environment where this kind of transition is feasible, is durable, and will not be subject to refoulement.
All right, so on that note, let me thank both of you gentlemen for joining us and giving us your insights into the developments in Jammu, Kashmir and Ladakh. Thanks very much for joining us in the studio.
Thank you.
Moving on, heavy rains battered large swaths of the country on Wednesday, and the situation